Now, to discuss these matters with us here on In Depth, we are joined by Ahmed Fattoh, who is the Fatah spokesperson, and also Ibrahim Al-Darawi, who is the writer and political analyst. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here with us on Qnews. I'll start with you, Ahmed Fattoh. Hamas has given a positive response to the US-backed ceasefire plan. What do you think this means for Gaza? Are we seeing a gradual path to peace?
We're really hoping for the Fatah movement this ceasefire deal will be successful this time and end this horror in Gaza. 2 million human beings are suffering immensely for the 20 months, and now is the time for this carnage to end. And we really hope that Trump this time is serious and determined to pressure Israel forward to respect the ceasefire deal, unlike the last time where they pulled out in the second phase. Of course, Gaza is now is bleeding, and we support and endorse strongly the ceasefire deal, and we call upon all nations to pressure Israel to respect this deal, because this time it should and it must end this genocide after 21 months of witnessing the most horrific crimes against humanity. It is about time for the world to respond and stop this cruelty and brutality of the Israeli far-right extremist government. And we look forward that this deal and this ceasefire deal should be followed by a comprehensive political process to end the 77 years of Israeli occupation over the Palestinian people. This is the time and opportunity that Trump should pick very quickly to and listen to the demands of all nations for the implementation of the two-state solution, because we have to touch the real issue here, which is the occupation, the root cause of all evil and all instability in region. Without touching this point and without touching the real issue, there will never be a sustainable peace in the region. And that is not in the benefit of Trump, who seeks for a Nobel Prize for peace, nor to the region that has suffered immensely for the past 21 months because of this war, and also because of Israeli aggression in Lebanon, Syria, and in Iran and other places. So this is the time to go for a political peaceful process.
And I'll come to you, Ibrahim Al-Darawi. Trump has welcomed Hamas's move, predicting perhaps a Gaza ceasefire and a detainee deal within the week. What can we expect from Netanyahu's visit to Washington taking place from Monday?
I expect that Trump announces this agreement from Washington while Netanyahu is there, especially that we have been seeing very important meetings in Tel Aviv in the Israeli cabinet that will make a decision to actually implement the deal or not. As you say, the devil is in the details. We have already details to be discussed and negotiated and then announced, as the Israeli side should be entirely open and transparent. I think that the Israeli army will actually withdraw from the Gaza Strip because they are no longer able to confront 2 million Palestinians and keep doing that. I think that all the items of the agreement that has been agreed upon are completely stemming from the first Egyptian vision, the Wetkoff initiative, and the initiatives that followed since Biden, and so until now, all are derived from the Cairo proposal, which was provided by Cairo to the mediators and to Israel as well as Hamas since the beginning of hostilities in 2023. There has been an Egyptian proposal that includes sufficient access of humanitarian aid, then a deal to end the war, and later on a recovery and reconstruction plan that would take 5 to 8 years, with the Palestinians remaining on their lands. without any form of displacement, even internal displacement in the Gaza Strip. I think this is the clear vision to be followed in order to manage this file and on the way to the two-state solution. This what has been proposed by Cairo, whether during the Islamic summit in Cairo or in Riyadh and all the Arab summits. Egypt presented this proposal, and it was a safe haven to all Palestinians, and it also was welcomed by the Europeans and Arabs alike. Let's say that President Trump, when he shared his vision as president to the United States today, we're talking about the Wetkoff proposal, which is actually derived from the Egyptian vision. But Benjamin Netanyahu always had something to fail any attempts to take him out of power and out of the political scene. Trump came and gave him a lot of political support, whether in his war against Tehran or on the Gaza Strip.
Okay, well, I'm going to come in there and I want to bring Ahmed Fattoh back in here on that trip that Netanyahu is making to Washington under quite a lot of U.S. pressure. Of course, we have Hamas signaling openness to talks. What do you make of Netanyahu's visit? What are we likely to see over the coming days?
What we hope to see is an actual end to this genocide, and that through pressure by Trump and his administration to respect the international law and to respect the Palestinian rights of self-determination. Now, there is some pressure stemming from the Arab world, of course, since the beginning of this war, and there is a pressure from the EU that this should stop and must stop. Now, Trump is facing the entire world. He's the only person who's actually giving fully green light and unconditional support to Israel. So I think that support must end now. Also, we have to address that the Arabic region has clearly proclaimed that there will be no deals or peaceful deals with Israel without resolving the Palestinian cause. So now is the time to end this craziness and carnage of Israel against the Palestinian people and go forward into a reasonable political solution that would end all this struggle. Also, I think that Netanyahu has solidified his position in the government. He's not afraid, like before, to lose his power and to go for his corruption cases. Recent polls by Israeli journalists says that Netanyahu popularity is increasing, so probably he is more relaxed now to end the war, not fearing to go to prison. But in any case, those war criminals and those who committed genocide must face justice, and the International Criminal Court must take action against these atrocities, because we have to discuss something very serious here, and that is not the horror of genocide only, but the fact that this genocide took place without action to stop it for 21 months. Palestinian people need a protection from such mentality that is looking at the Palestinian people as subhuman being that could be massacred without any consequences.
And of course, even if there is some kind of ceasefire, if humanitarian aid doesn't get into the Gaza Strip, then we're looking at a continuation of a genocide. Ibrahim Al-Darawi, a 60-day ceasefire is what's on the table. Do you think this temporary pause could last to a lasting peace? And just how important is that humanitarian aid and the ability to be able to access it without getting shot to death?
I think that the insistence carried out by Egypt and Doha for the United States to be the guarantor of a continuation of a ceasefire and the assurances paid by the United States, we can also look at these themes that Trump is the one controlling the internal Israeli policies, and this gave a safe haven to Trump to follow through with the agreement. The 60-day is to follow up with the Egyptian vision items. This was approved by the entire international community. Egypt, Cairo talked, and we have seen a lot of visits from the international community and from the European Union to the Rafah crossings, and they saw how many aid trucks are accumulated there. And on the other way of this crossing, there are people and children starving to death. The media, the Western media now is opposing Israel, and Trump wants to actually give full cover and support to Benjamin Netanyahu, whether on the internal level inside Israel or at an international level, to actually hold a deal for detainee exchange. The final point, as the guy said, that Trump wants to acquire a Nobel Prize, and I think it's a personal interest for Trump to implement this deal, and that's why he's going to pressure Netanyahu to end the war completely in the Gaza Strip and to implement a detainee exchange deal. And there are always common interests between the Arab world and the United States of America. The Abraham Accords proposed by Trump before, and he is calling these accords again now. This is also evidence that Netanyahu has to give up to the desires of the US administration, and the US administration has also to cooperate with the Arab world, with Saudi Arabia, with the UAE and Qatar, or the entire Gulf region that has real interests with the United States. If we take all this into consideration, we can find that this deal is different compared to the prior ones.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll bring Ahmed Fattoh back in with us. Hamas consulted, it says, other Palestinian groups before responding. Does this reflect a certain amount of unity?
Well, unfortunately, we have not been consulted as a Fatah movement, which is the biggest political faction and Palestinian faction in Palestine and the ruling party. We have not been consulted, to be honest with you.
And so you think perhaps when they say they consulted other groups, it might not be true?
It's from our case, they did not consult us. I'm not sure if they consulted, to my knowledge, they consulted probably the groups in Gaza. And that is the mistake that Hamas continues to do, which is isolating itself from the Palestinian spectrum, isolating itself from the Palestinian Liberation Organization. We supported and we came together with the Arab world into a deal was a rope thrown to Hamas as a safety net from the genocide. Hamas until now did not hold with that rope. The Arab deal specify a political process that should end this genocide and go into Palestinian unity. Until now, Hamas continues in making indirect talks with the United States and Israel. Of course, we trust on the mediators that they would pressure forward into a deal that is a comprehensive political solution that would fulfill the Palestinian ambitions. Now, we have to, of course, go into unity, and Hamas have to submit the authority to the legitimate authority. Because going into negotiations with the international world, into an international peace conference, requires that the Palestinian legitimate authority be there, the PLO. And we have the expertise and we have the terms that we want to push forward, which is the two-state solution 1967, on the establishment of the Palestinian state on 1967 borders, the right of return to the refugees, the Jerusalem, and our natural resources to be respected, and to remove all settlements. Now, for the current phase, we call for a ceasefire, the full retreatment of the Israeli occupation forces from Gaza and the West Bank, and immediate flood of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, to the starving 2.2 million human beings, and to go immediately into a Palestinian united government and a temporary government by technocrats, not members of political parties, but technocrats, and then go into elections when the time allows it and the situation allows it, full elections with the president's elections and parliamentary elections. This is the way forward, and we hope that Hamas put its hand with the PLO and the Palestinian factions, and now there's no more axes that they could rely on, and Iran, frankly, had made deals, are going to make deals, and is discussing deals with the United States, and they are not gonna care for Hamas power or any of that. So Hamas need to realize that the only way out is we together hold hands under the legitimacy of the PLO.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to you now, Ibrahim Al-Darawi. Netanyahu facing pressure. We were talking there with Ahmed Fattoh about the way forward, perhaps, in Gaza when it comes to governance. What about the governance in Tel Aviv? Is domestic politics in Israel going to allow him to make this ceasefire deal? Can he make the concessions? Or will hardliners perhaps block any deal?
I need to stress that Cairo is only seeking the unity of the Palestinian people, and the PLO has always been engaged in the negotiation with the Egyptian leadership. And when we talk about this, the ones rejecting Hamas and the PLO is the Israeli side, and this was clearly stated by Benjamin Netanyahu himself. But Cairo has been always keen on having unity among Palestinian factions, and that's why Cairo talked about the societal committee, a technocratic committee, the domestic Israeli politics, and the far-right government is not accepting the two-state solution. The war could end today, and we can provide humanitarian aid access, but will the far-right government, led by Benjamin Netanyahu himself, he is most radical, not Smotrich and Ben Gvir. Netanyahu himself is the most radical, and he will not accept a two-state solution. I do not think that we will have that while he's there, because he opposed Oslo Accords and Sharon and everything that Netanyahu has stated for 20 years now, that he has been completely opposing the idea of a Palestinian state on the 1967 borders. It's a real disaster, and the problem is in Benjamin Netanyahu himself. But the mediators and the Arab world want real pressure from Trump on Netanyahu to actually accept the two-state solution. But there is another crisis, which is land annexations, and which was discussed by the former late leader Abu Ammar when he talked about how to divide and distribute land. And now Israel is annexing a lot of lands. In the past 2 years alone, 40,000 Israeli settlements have been established in the West Bank and on Palestinian territories. We're talking about the borders of A, B, and C in the Oslo Accords and in the peace treaties. Right now there is only the West Bank and not its full geographic area. There has been a demographic radical change with the settlements and with the settlers killing Palestinians and kicking them out of their lands. I think all of this can only be solved with a clear, direct intervention from the United States, and for Trump to actually work for the two-state solution. And this was highlighted by President Sisi more than once, that peace will not be brought by power, but peace is the core thing for the two peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, to coexist in the same region. But this cannot be achieved through the policies adopted by the current Israeli government. And this is an established fact. The international community is aware of that. The West is aware of that. the true peace will come by giving the Palestinians their due rights. We're talking about peace with Syria, peace with Lebanon, and we're talking about disarmament of Hamas to actually have real peace in the region. Will the United States accept to pressure Netanyahu into this or not? I highly doubt it, except if Trump had the true desire to follow the path of the two-state solution.
Okay.
If the US really wants the two-state solution, we will actually see it, and we will see the Egyptian vision for peace in the Middle East, and only then Trump will be the man of peace in the world.
Okay, well, we should. That remains to be seen. Remains to be seen, doesn't it? I'll come to you, Ahmed Fattoh. We've had so many failed attempts before at this. Why do you think this particular ceasefire proposal might stand a better chance if you do? And what might be different this time?
Well, the death toll speaks for itself. The world is erupting. There is demonstration everywhere. Global demand for the end of genocide. And the Israeli far-right government cannot continue slaughtering and killing the Palestinian people. They cannot cut their path through the bloodshedding of the Palestinian people. That is madness. Of course, the pressure from the Arab world, from the EU, playing a major role. Now there are discussions in the EU to put some sort of sanction against Israel. I'm really surprised that they took them so long. Until now, they did not issue a decision to cut it. I hope they will. And France is in communication with England to recognize the state of Palestine. Of course, we have to understand that the Israeli far-right government refused the very mere existence of the Palestinian people and refused to recognize even the Palestinian ethnicity. So they don't want any plan that would make a Palestinian state. But here's where the world needs to be involved into enforcing the two-state solution. Of course, the Netanyahu and his ilk of the far-right Zionism will not accept any state, not in 100 years. So that's why the world needs to take action. I think Trump is also want to end these wars. Trump, in general, he's not a person of war. Until now, he made a war and supported genocide. But I look forward that he's listening to his friends, to his partners in the Middle East and in Europe, that Israel should stop. And it cannot continue endlessly. There must be a political solution. And Israel must respect its neighbors and must respect the international law. Now, the Abraham Accords, as you has said, it's not going to continue. And it's been stated clearly by the Arab world that they will not accept any deal with Israel without a solution for the Palestinian cause and the question of Palestine. So I hope this time the Trump pressure is going to be enough for Israel to respect that. And also, it's costly. We have to think that the amount of bombs dropped on Gaza is more than 100,000 tons of explosions. And that is not only catastrophic and crazy that they are doing all that damage on 360 kilometers squares of civilian population, but also it costs the United States, because we have to look at it. Trump is the one that's sending bombs and guns to Israel. Not only Trump, the previous administration too, but right now Israel has shortages in its missiles and its air defense, and it's costing the United States. So there is no benefit actually for whatever Netanyahu is doing. He's only costing the United States, as only causing havoc in the region, killing people and doing this carnage before our eyes on live TV. The entire world is against this. Only this fascist Zionist movement behind it. So I think Trump is getting close to end this, and I hope he's serious this time and determined. The world needs to understand the Palestinian cause will not be ended without a Palestinian independent state. Not if they slaughtered every last one of us. We will continue our struggle. There are 7 million Palestinian refugees outside Palestine, and this cause is just cause. It will not end with this, a fascist mentality.
Well, thank you very much indeed to both of you for joining us here on Q News. That was Ahmed Fattoh, who is from Fatah, and also Ibrahim Al-Darawi, who is a writer and political analyst.